All right, well, I'm here with Dan Foley of Foley's Health and Fitness, and we're just talking about a lot of different things today. And the main thing we want to kind of touch base on, I think, is finding your purpose in life. And so, Dan, just, I don't know, in your own words, where did you start? And where did you start your journey in this whole idea about someone finding their purpose in life?
Well, I hadn't thought about this before we talked about it, but it all went back for me. I would say I came across this challenge. We talked about it of reading the book of Proverbs every day. The first day of the month you read Proverbs 1, day 2 you read Proverbs 2. So I'm going through that. I can't remember what month it was, but I got started. I came across the challenge. Said you do it for 5 years. It'll change your life, and it definitely changed. Definitely changed my life. But Proverbs 13, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So I came across that verse, and it just, you get those times where the verse just like jumps off the page at you, and it just it started me thinking, is what would I want to leave my kids, my grandkids? Hopefully one day, I don't have any grandkids right now, but hopefully one day leave for my grandkids. And it got me thinking about, the most valuable thing I could ever leave to them. Most people think about money, when we talk about that. Most valuable thing I could ever leave for them is, wisdom.
Yeah.
How do you live a better life? How do you live a better life? And, a huge part of that, we go way back, a huge part of living a better life is, you need to know your purpose. You need to know what is the direction that you're supposed to be going, so that you feel like you're on track. I know one of the big questions that we talked about this recently is, all right, God, how do I know am I on track or not?
Right.
How can I get to this place where I can kind of self-correct myself and know when I'm off track, so that you don't have to nudge me back on. I mean, we both have kids. Yours are older than mine, but you want your kids to get to the place where if they get off track, they can self-correct and then get back on track. And part of that is having this purpose, and not only knowing that, but I feel like knowing what is God's purpose. What's He trying to accomplish? And because we have a purpose that fits, inside of that.
Right.
And if we know what that target is, it serves as a GPS to let me know the direction that I need to be going in. I feel like it's a huge piece of it. I would say that was the starting place.
Right.
A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And, I don't know if most people would have responded this way, but my response was, all right, I want to leave wisdom for them. I'm going to start to make manuals to pass on to my kids and to my grandkids. And that's where the books actually came from. Now, when I first started, the only manual I knew to leave them was health. I had studied that. I'd been all over the country. And, of course, God has greatly expanded what I know about health since that time. But I knew there were some things I wanted to teach them about health, maybe about business and finances. I had no spiritual life at the time. And so 7 Days with Jesus, my first book, definitely wouldn't have been at the top of my list of things that I was going to pass on at the time. But that was what got me started. It kind of gave me a purpose and direction of like, all right, I'm going to kind of make it part of my life's purpose to pass on something to them on how do you live? How do you live a better life?
Well, and part of pursuing that purpose, of course, you wrote your first book, 7 Days with Jesus, and then kind of the follow-up book, if you will, or the second book, Cracking Heaven's Code, God's System for Restoring Abundant Health. I mean, that all, and then we've been talking quite a bit, and you've been talking about a third book.
Yeah.
Share a little bit about, what God is showing you for that third book and how it all ties together.
How it all ties together, yeah. So, one of the things I would want to pass on is that God began to show me, we've talked about this several times, this process of how do you go from maybe where you are. Where I was, my business was not going well. I was stressed out all the time. My life was unbalanced. Things were just not going the way that I wanted them to go, and beginning to move them in the direction of where I wanted my life to go, more balanced, connected to God, feel like I know my sense of purpose, getting more free in my time and money and all these areas of life, and really feeling like I'm moving in the direction God wants my life to go. To go from way over here to going to this side. How do you do that?
Right.
And God has a process. You know, God has a time and procedure for everything that he does. I think it's Ecclesiastes says that. And part of that process, you see the Israelites, their journey, they started in Egypt. You know, life is not going the way that they wanted to go. They cross the Red Sea, they go into the wilderness. Okay, 40 years they're in the wilderness, and then eventually they come out, they cross over the Jordan River, and they move into the Promised Land. Well, when they get into the Promised Land, God tells them, hey, I'm not going to give it to you all at once, because it would be too much for you. Okay, the beasts would become too many. It's going to take more than a year for you to possess the land when you cross over into it. And so one of the things I've seen is that, you know, when we first, you know, invite Jesus into our hearts, you know, we go into a wilderness time. So Jesus went through the same pattern. He gets baptized, 40 days in the wilderness, says he comes out in the power of the Spirit, and he goes into his ministry from there. And so I think that's the pattern. And so I would want to teach my kids this pattern. So, you know, first of all, if you're in the wilderness, okay, how do you get out? It'll be the first thing. So the first book, 7 Days with Jesus, talks about connecting with God. How do you get out of the wilderness? How do you cross over out of the wilderness and what you're called to do? But then I had this encounter with God, you know, showed me my time in the wilderness was over, and I'm thinking, woo, we're going to the Promised Land, everything is going to be great. And little did I know, you know, I didn't know this at the time, my Bible knowledge wasn't that great yet. There's a procedure, you know, for going in. You can't just step right into it. There's a process of maturing once you step into that Promised Land that you have to go through to really be able to take hold of what God's called you to do and to really step into that purpose. And so, kind of this, you know, what would be the path I would want to teach my grandkids? Number one, 7 Days with Jesus. How do we, you know, what is the wilderness like? How do we cross over it into the Promised Land? And then now we're going to start this process. Once you cross over, you've initiated, I call it this heavenly sequence of events is about to unfold in your life. God's about to show up in a miraculous way, but he's got a process that he's going to take you through to move you into this. And so 7 Days with Jesus kind of starts that process. How do we cross over? Here's what's waiting for you on the other side when you get over there. And it's going to walk you through basically the spiritual aspects of life. Because if I was going to teach my grandkids, it would be how do we grow from the inside out? Yeah. So we're going to grow spiritually first. Okay, and then we're going to progress. 7 Days with Jesus is going to teach you the spiritual aspects, as best I know, what to expect when you cross over into that 1 year, the things that you're going to need to grow in spiritually. Yeah. And then we move into Cracking Heaven's Code, which is the second book, which is the biggest part of that book for me. The first thing is it goes through, it's got a whole framework in there really for renewing your mind. And your emotions. We talked about, you know, understanding that emotions are your translators, and you've got these emotions trying to give you feedback, and understanding there's a different way to think and how your emotions function, and all these types of things. So really, we've got love God, and then, you know, loving yourself. Okay, so there's a third piece, you know, love your neighbor as yourself. So the third piece that I'm working on now is, all right, we're going to love God, we're going to love ourselves, and then we're going to renew our mind, we're going to think differently, we're going to take care of our health, we're going to learn how to manage our money, we're going to learn how to, you know, take care of my own stuff. But then I've also got to love my neighbor as myself. How do I do that? How do I do that? And that became a question for me. It's not just about me. I got to get my own self right, spiritually and mentally and emotionally and practically in the areas of life. But then there's a whole bunch of other people that I'm supposed to be loving and helping too. How do I build this kind of community around me? Because one of the things I've learned, we've talked about this, for you to really fulfill that purpose or the direction that you've got for your life, you can't do it on your own. That's right. It's one of the things I've learned. You can take this, you know, this individualistic approach where I'm going to try, you know, I can do it better than everybody else. Or, like we've been talking about this new book, I think one of the themes is finding out what is your God-given thing that you can do better, that only you can do, that you can do better than anybody else, and beginning to move into that. But when you do that, that means you're going to leave some other things that you're not doing anymore, and you're going to need people around you to help with that. And you know, I'm still working on kind of organizing everything for this content, but that's kind of the concept of it. And I know you've got some insights and some thoughts into you know, the church and community and those types of things. So.
Well, and it's interesting. You know, you mentioned seeking your purpose and growing in wisdom. You know, the Bible even says that Jesus grew in wisdom and stature. Yep. Said he's our example, and he went through the wilderness, and then he came out. Yeah, that's some interesting stuff, and I can see how pursuing that is going to lead into that third book. And I love your idea about community. mean, I don't think Jesus could have done it himself. He surrounded himself with 12 apostles, 12 disciples, and then it went from there. And it said those 12 turned the world upside down.
Yeah.
So, what is God showing you in building that community? What does that look like from your point of view with you finding, and focusing on your main purpose?
Yeah.
And leaving, some of these other things that you talk about, not undone, but needing help from others. What does that look like practically? I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. Some of it I'm still trying to figure out. But I think this third book, the first question that started prompting this book, I think for me, was just me. I had found purpose and direction for my life, but I still wanted to know, all right, God, how do I know, am I on track? Like, am I moving the direction you want me to be? Am I in your timing? Am I in your will? Am I moving the direction? Am I living the way you want me to live? How do I know? How do I know? I mean, I'm sure anybody who's really seeking the Lord probably has asked that question at some time. Like, all right, God, am I just, am I way off? Am I on track? How am I doing? I think we all need some feedback. And so he began to show me this concept of, the Bible talks about set your mind on the high things of God. So in the Cracking Heavens Code book, we talk about this principle of set your mind on the high things of God. And I began, a buddy of mine, one day we were at Bible study, he said, what are these high things that he's talking about? What are these high things? How do I know? On heavenly things, well, that's, practically, what is that?
Right.
And he began to show me, it's the standard. What is God's standard? Okay, and you use that as the GPS. It's not that you might, in this life, we might not ever get there necessarily, but it's a matter of direction. Am I moving towards it, or am I moving, in the wrong direction from it? So what is that standard? He began to show me, so a couple things. What does God want? What's his vision? How do we know if we're on track to helping him build that?
Right.
Everyone would believe in Jesus. Everybody is aligned toward a common goal. And we're growing and maturing and becoming more like him. So, number one thing out of everything, we believe in Jesus, and we're seeking growth. We're trying to grow. We're trying to mature. We're trying to become more like him.
Right.
That's number one. Everything else falls underneath that. We're seeking and pursuing him, because if we seek, we'll find. And that's number one, is that we're pursuing growth, and we're pursuing him, we're trying to grow more and more like Jesus. But underneath that, there's kind of three sub-goals that are typically put in place. So, number one, self-sufficiency. And this is kind of a confusing one for people, like self-sufficiency. Well, I need God, You still need God, but God, just like, every parent, you want your kids to get to the place where they are self-sufficient. If we're God's children, he wants us to get to this place where we're self-sufficient. You want your kids to be able to cook their own food and make their own money and, make good decisions on their own and be able to navigate their life. And one of the biggest aspects of self-sufficiency is this concept of, if I'm off track, I know how to self-correct. I know how to get back on the path. And I use that standard as my GPS. If I'm going down the road and I take a wrong turn, the GPS starts yelling at you, recalculating. I use that standard as my GPS to course correct. I showed up and whatever, I snapped at my kids or my wife, and I wasn't, being the person that I want to be that day. Can I self-correct and get back on track? Or does God have to keep, nudging me? You want your kids to be able to do that.
Sure.
To be able to course correct. So that's number one. Number two, we know our purpose. So it talks about good work. We know our purpose. We're good at it, because there are going to be some skill sets that you have to grow in to fulfill your purpose. And we're working at it at a high level. And then number three is you're contributing to other people around you. You're making a difference for other people around you. Those are the three criteria. Number one, we all believe in Jesus, and we're growing more like him. We're seeking him and pursuing him and trying to grow and mature. And then we're becoming more self-sufficient, and then we know how to stay on track. If we get off, we're finding our purpose, and we're functioning in it at a high level, and we're contributing to other people. So that's the GPS, I feel like, the standard that we're going after. But how do you actually build this thing practically, right, is the question. Exactly. How do we build this thing practically? So I think it's this, is that as you move in to your gifting, your calling, My experience has been God often will ask you for a higher level of dedication towards it.
Right.
He'll say, I want you to commit to this thing. Well, when you choose this, that means there's some other things that are not as high of a priority. It doesn't mean I can't still function on them, but it means that I'm probably going to need to find help. I'm going to need to find somebody who is skilled in other areas for me to do this. So, for example, in my gym, we have a gym business, but I'm off writing books.
Right.
Okay? If I'm going to focus on my thing, which I think is this, okay, I need people around me that can handle the running of they can run the business, they can train the clients, they can do all that stuff. I do some of the more higher level kind of strategic thinking of where we're trying to go with the business.
Right.
And eventually, hopefully, we want people moving up into some of those things even as well. But the more I can surround myself with people, that allows me, so what happens is you create, I call it a freedom cycle. In that there's I can't remember who has this saying, but there's a saying that says, may I be liberated for the benefit of all. And so as you get freed up, because I'm going to call it like this, when you try to step out into your thing, the world doesn't want you to.
Right. No, it's going to
it's trying to pull you back, like, no, don't go, we need you over here, but God's saying, I need you over here. It says He places each one of us in the body as He sees fit, right? And so He's trying to place you over here, but you got everybody else saying, no, you don't belong over there, come over here with us. And they're not going to want to let you go, and you're going to need to build a team. So what happens is this, it talks about, you probably know the verse better than I do. Ephesians, I think it is, when every part of the body is working properly and working together. So working properly, they're self-sufficient. They're doing the work, and they're doing a good job of it, and they're contributing to the body. Each part has to be doing those, and growing, and consistently growing in those things.
Right.
When every part of the body is doing those things, it frees me up. So for example, I use my gym example. If I got staff in place that are growing the business, growing themselves personally, they're self-sufficient, they don't need my help to do it, they know how to course correct and get back on track. Right. They're doing good work, and they're building a team around them, I don't have to worry about it. Right. It frees me up to focus on the next thing. Now, if I'm freed up, it allows me to focus on going to the next level and bring them with me. Right. So that may I be liberated for the benefit of all. As I get free, I can bring people with me. And so I think that's kind of how it looks. I mean, in the church, you need the same thing. You can't do, if you're trying to do everything in the church yourself, you're going to be limited in how far you can go. But as you get people to be self-sufficient, to be growing, to be functioning in their gifting and contributing to the team, now everybody starts to grow. But the problem is this, in your physical body, whatever, we'll use your liver as an example. If your liver is not doing its job the way that it should be, other parts of the body has to compensate. Right. They have to go in to compensate. In the short term, no big deal. You can do it temporarily in the short term, no problem. Right. Okay? But long term, it consistently happens. Eventually, we run into issues. You get into compensation patterns, which my experience, I've had a lot of experience in the gym with compensation patterns. People trying to work around areas that are not functioning properly always leads to pain. Right. Okay? So if you individually are not functioning, self-sufficient, finding your purpose, contributing to the team, well, then you are causing pain to the people around you. And if you're trying to step into your thing, but you're surrounded by people that are they're trying to pull you back and not wanting to let you. So how do you love others as yourself? Number one, you got to get yourself functioning. You got to love yourself first. I got to get myself to that place, and it's a process. It's continually growing. But then I got to help other people do the same thing.
And we see that in the church as well. I mean, take for instance someone working with the young kids in the back. They may be naturally gifted to work with those kids, but God is calling them to another part of the ministry. It may be, hospitality, or I don't know, working in the media department. That's where He's wanting to place them. But because of their natural gift, I don't say gifting, their natural, just their natural ability to relate to kids. They're being held back and staying back there when God is actually showing them a different area that He wants to use them in. So, and I don't know if you can speak to this. I know this might be a little bit off topic for us, but
Sure.
do you believe that someone's natural talents, natural giftings, and when I say natural, I mean in the physical human aspect, you know, you have some, you could argue maybe you have some naturally gifted athletes. Do you think God uses those natural giftings for the calling on their life, or do you think they can be totally different, or does it happen both ways? I mean, what is your thoughts?
I guess my experience, the first thing that comes to mind is my experience has been He works everything together for good. So my experience has been like some of the stuff that I thought was like unrelated skill sets that I had in my life, like experiences as, you know, an athlete in college or coaching college baseball. What does that have to do with writing a book about Jesus? You know, like, but there's lessons hidden. So He wants to take all of your experiences, your skill sets, all of the things that you've been through, the stories that you got.
Right.
He wants to bind them together into one thing that's unique to you. So part of this book that we're talking about is you moving into your unique thing. Okay? There is something unique about you and some unique purpose that only you can do.
That's right.
And it's going to blend. It might be kids blended with something else. You know, so it's going to be this combination. For me, it's like this weird conglomeration of writing books and speaking and sports and fitness and science and numbers and Chinese medicine and you know, all this random stuff, and you throw it all together into this thing that's unique to me. But you know, that's one of the mysteries we talk about in 7 Days of Jesus. Is hidden in the Jubilee. You know, every 50th year was the Jubilee where people were set free. What is the mystery of that? Is you are set free to be you.
Right.
You're set free to be the unique person that He called you to be, but the world doesn't want you to step into that. You know, because you know they want you to fit in and be like them. And as you try to move, people are going to try to pull you back. That's why you have to have this team around you that's functioning at a high level to allow you to step into that. Now, I do think that this process we've talked about, you know, 40 in the wilderness, a year-long process.
Right.
I think the only way you can build that around you is that those people have to go through the process too.
Right.
Because they can't get to this place of maturity, of self-sufficiency and purpose and contribution and those types of things until they've gone through this maturing process of going through the process with God.
Right.
I don't know, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know that it's possible to build that around you without taking other people through the process. So, you know, the Bible talks about we do have to prove ourselves. So, you know.
And I love what you said about as you mature and you're growing up in the things of God, you're bringing people along with you. I mean, that's really the gospel in a nutshell. I mean, you want to lift everyone up that is around you. And so that third book is going to talk about that. You think that's going to?
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's how do you do it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the practical, and it's a great concept, right? You know, we've talked about this before. I'm not huge on, if God's going to show me something, a spiritual principle, like I want to know, how do I apply that?
That's right.
How do we apply that? And I think it starts with, you know, you got somebody who's maybe in the wilderness time, and asking them and talking to them and getting to know them and loving them and taking an interest in them, and just, you know, what does your promised land look like? Because theirs is going to look different than mine. Yours is going to look different than mine.
Right.
Where do you see your life? Where do you want it to go? Where do you feel like maybe God is calling you to go, and encouraging them to keep moving forward in that? Because, like I said, most people want to discourage you from thinking big and going after something bigger for your life. Everyone wants to discourage you. So it could be as simple as a starting place of just taking an interest in people and asking them where they want to go and giving them some encouragement.
Well, if you think about it, that's an interesting